And our winner, DaVaun, as Kevin said, was the one who got a chance to get a scene from his 20-page script shot in a day. And if you know anything about filmmaking, it is not cheap, and it is not easy, and it's really important to get a skilled crew to get a really quality product. And that's where Kevin and his awesome posse came in. So we're going to go ahead and get started and show you guys this script, or the film rather. It is a self-contained scene, so for the most part you can kind of get the gist. And so up here, and Kevin Phipps, Lamar, and DaVaun Sanders, if you guys want to come up and so you guys are department heads, and obviously our Viz effects. Thank you very much, for that, Joe. We've got our Viz effects, we've got our composer, we've got our camera team here. Those of you guys who want to chime in, you're definitely welcome to. Obviously, we have limited space, but really awesome people willing to participate. So if you guys have any questions for them as we go along, please feel free to raise your hand and ask specific questions about what you saw here. This was ultimately meant to be a calling card for DaVaun's work. So, he's someone who has written novels, right? Or novellas? Novels. And he's a writer who's written scripts. He participated in the 2013 screenplay competition as well. So this is a nice way for us to show up DaVaun's work because, of course, writers without camera crew or editors are, restricted to the page. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys, if you want to come down from Ruben, if you want to talk about your experience, what you've done, and how you participated greatly in producing this project. And we'll just go down the line here.
Hi, everybody. So I've been in the film business for 20 years now, primarily as an actor, 30 films under my belt, and decided in 2009, through some prompting, Kevin or Phipps, to become a producer. And to date, I've produced over 10 films from start to finish, pre-production, development, pre-production, production, both television, feature film, web, and sky's the limit. Just small projects like this, volunteering my time. I was brought into the project, I would say, halfway through, I believe. And there was a need there, all hands on deck to put all the pieces together, and I'm glad to help out. So when it came to locations and permits and getting the finalization of crew that we needed, and then taking that, helping out in the post-production side as well. So.
Hey everyone, my name is Jeffrey from Lamar. I'm originally from Orlando, Florida, where I did most of my work in television and film. I was a part of some short-lived TV series out there. There was this TV show called Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. With Gina Lee Nolan from Baywatch. I got a chance to do a part on that, and then there was the Cape with Corbin Burnson and Adam Baldwin. I moved to New York in 2000, and I was fortunate enough to do some soap operas out there, and an episode of Law and Order: Criminal Intent, and got a chance to at least be in the same room and share some dialogue with Vincent D'Onofrio and Courtney DaVaun. So I'm happy, I'm blessed, and then it's also where in New York I met my wife, Brandy. It was Planet Hollywood and everything, but y'all want to know about that. So we moved out here in 2010, and I was like, God, I gotta keep doing this acting thing. I was getting a little bit, why am I out here, this, that, and the other. And hooked up with Kevin and Ruben, and did Like Alone, Hope, the Hope series, which we hope there'll be some new life into that, later this year. All right, and I'm working with these cats ever since, man. I love these guys. They bring a pretty good energy to the table, and it's absolutely a blessing to be working with this guy. I'm really happy about that. But this was amazing. I want to give him an hand. Really proud of yourself. It looked amazing. Really good. But with that, I'll just pass it on to Scott.
You've already heard my voice a little bit. Ooh, it's so deep. Ministry radio, that's very cool. For any of the comic book fans out here, I started out in comic books actually. I was a colorist for G.I. Joe, X-Men, and a few other things before I decided to get out of the cubicle. And I was just tired of sitting in a cubicle 20 hours a day. And so I became a director, actually an assistant director at first. And then I moved my way up to directing, done a lot of commercials, TV, feature films. We have one coming out soon, and then this boy asked me, actually, Cassandra asked me, and then we're best friends now. No, I was kidding. But yeah, I don't know, I direct stuff, that's what we do, right? So, I don't know what to say. I can't do anything without the team, I mean, honestly. So, thank you.
All right, everything.
Radio voice too.
DaVaun Sanders. This project has been a dream come true. I'm a writer, for something like this, I began with novels, sci-fi and fantasy has been my wheelhouse, and then I think in today's day and age, a lot of times there's so much opportunity to kind of branch out with what you do, whether that's a graphic novel, whether it's a production such as this. So screenwriting is kind of a natural progression for me, I guess. And just with the opportunities that are here in the Phoenix community, between the groups that we have for growth out here, one being PSA, different seminars and things, I've really had an opportunity to hone what I would like to do. And with Comicon and the contest, that just it was I don't know, I've been kind of floating, I think, like just this whole journey, seeing the team bring everything together. It's I keep saying it's a dream come true. It's a blessing to see something that you envisioned. I was just sharing with somebody in the audience. It's crazy to have an actor come up to you, hey, you can change this. And you're just like, it's beautiful to see all of this come together. And this guy, that's how he directs.
I'm just like, whatever you want to do, let's just do it.
I think too, and it's like you see the energy that I think everybody brings. It's really, it's just been a great positive experience, and I think more than anything, it's made me hungry to be the best I can be at what I do, and then just to know that, with any project I want, that there is just a thriving community out here in Arizona, just like, just professional go-getters that I just, speechless about it all. So I'll shut up now. I'll just try to.
Thank you, DaVaun. Yeah. So Trevor, he was the DP. So of course he made Kevin's vision, which is ultimately DaVaun's vision, come to life. And he also worked with his camera operator Luis, who's somewhere in here.
There's Luis.
Yeah, there's Luis. Hey,
Luis, Megan.
So, you guys, before we talk about Trevor's experience, because that's what we were just introducing really fast, and then we'll go into like the process, because that's what you guys are here for. Anyone who worked on the film in any capacity, you guys mind standing up so we can go ahead and give you guys a round of applause, because you guys are awesome and fantastic. As you guys can see, it takes a village, and this is man hours, crazy man hours. I met Kevin the night before the shoot because I had to fly out for work for San Diego, and I had to leave it in, and these guys are just more the capable hands, and Susan and Shannon and Kevin are all working on props and everything, and it's just amazing the kind of work people did. It was out of the goodness of their heart. And as to DaVaun's point, that is absolutely here. You just kind of have to step out, be willing to give first, and then certainly the receiving will be there for you. So do you want to go ahead, Trevor, and talk about what you did and what your experience is in the film community here?
Sure. First off, I want to say I like Kevin's swag. I have 2 film degrees, and I've learned all about it. My father was in the movie industry, so I've loved it ever since I was a kid. So I have lived in Los Angeles and worked in the industry out there, and I do a lot of corporate work out here because that's where the money is out here. And then we do sort of passion projects like this, and then it turns into something bigger. So I want to thank this awesome panel here for all their amazing talents. It really makes it easy when it's a fun group. You know, there's different sets. There's tough sets where everyone's a ball breaker, excuse my French, and there's also nice sets. And Kevin definitely runs a really nice set. And Phil, he's even a good guy. First date. But yeah, we shot this on 2 Panasonic GH4s. We shot it in 4K. So, and then we finished, in a lower res. So what that gave us the opportunity to do was to be able to zoom in or pan in post, however we wanted. So it gave us a little more option that way, a little more leeway. But the GH4, the coloring, the sensor, and everything, I was really, really happy with the way it turned out. So.
So I guess we'll start from the beginning. How many of you guys in here are writers or aspiring writers? Go ahead and raise your hand. Wow, that's amazing. I love seeing that. How many of you guys, of the writers, and even those who maybe haven't written anything or don't plan to, how many of you guys plan to produce at some point or would like to see some of your work produced? Cool. So we'll go ahead and start from the beginning. And DaVaun, is your concept you want to talk about what spawned this world that you created and kind of how you created that world? And I know that we've got just a limited amount of time, but once we're done with what DaVaun has to say, if you guys have questions about the writing process, we'll go ahead and open it up for that before we get to the directing. So, go for it.
All right. This idea for Vault of Souls, it started out as a short story, developed into this. It's basically, the concept of it is, kind of looking in this day of age, we have these finite resources, everybody's worried about air quality, water quality, so forth and so on. The germ for this story was to take that to a metaphysical question of, what would happen if the world ran out of souls, if that was a finite resource. This story with the 2 individuals you see here, the enforcement officer is charged with interrogating someone who has the answer to that question, and to make a long story short, it becomes very personal to him because he's an expecting father himself. So they go through this whole process, and a lot of other stuff happens off scene in the rest of the script. But yeah, that kind of wraps up the script. There was more to the question. Is there?
Yeah, so I mean, you start with an idea, and then of course you have to build this world that's believable and characters that are relatable, and especially these 2 characters, they become really great foils for each other, and we kind of saw that even in that scene where they're really being introduced. Do you have any advice or maybe some insight into how you really, gave life to maybe just the concept? And then we'll go ahead and any questions you guys have.
Okay, yeah, I think with these, I think for anything that you're going to have, you always have to remember, that storytelling is going to be a visual medium. It's easy, I think for a lot of us as writers, some of you probably switch back and forth between a lot of things, whether that's novels or whatever the case is. And you have to remember that you have to show everything, show and tell. I know it's such cliche advice, but it's something that definitely helps me with every scene. I think it helped with this. With these guys in this particular script, the Maddox Wing character who's sitting down, and then the Ben Raynor character who is standing up and seemingly in control, there's a lot of nuance that you can bring out through dialogue that even in a scene like this is sort of low intensity, but every interaction that you try and have with your characters, ideally, you're raising the stakes like a little bit more. You're giving them something to go off that makes the other character have to go back. I know a lot of for our actors here, for improv, I think as a writer, that's one of the best things we can do is just like get into that, so you almost subconsciously know how to raise the stakes, and that should happen, from scene development to every bit of dialogue. Everything should be pushing you a little bit closer and a little bit closer to being off the cliff. So for whatever that's worth.
And your first draft is not perfect. And so that's really something I think that, I don't know how many drafts you went through, DaVaun. Can you remember?
Oh, man. Yeah, there was a definite first draft. This particular, it was 20 pages?
Yeah.
Yeah, 20 pages. So, you start changing names of people. What's the shortest name that's still, you start doing ridiculous things to, bring your script down. And, you know, it's just like an associate might call it word Tetris, you know, because you're doing different things to, you know, just to meet the word count and page count. But with this, I think I want to say probably 3 drafts to just distill it and get the core of it within, you know, a limited amount of time to tell the story. It was a rolling process.
And DaVaun's referring to the 20-page limit. So the short screenplay competition had to be a minimum of 5, maximum of 10. Minimum of 10, maximum of 20. So you kind of had, if it was 21, you know, I had to disqualify. And I hated doing it, but it was the requirement. So that's what he's talking about. Following the rules of competitions. If you enter competitions, follow the rules to the letter, because it's amazing the kind of silly, seemingly meaningful details are required for it. So do you guys have any questions for DaVaun's process? Any writing questions in terms of, yes? We'll start in the back and then.
Okay. So like whenever I'm writing or I have a certain idea and I'm actually creating it, I don't remember like the date and time, but I kind of remember where I was, like what I was doing and like what was going on in my surroundings. Do you remember what you were doing when you came up with this idea, or was it?
That's a good question. No, I was not drinking whiskey. Honestly, where was I at? I'd probably have to go back through my journal. At this moment, I don't, but I think I was just in an intense, I think a lot of times, one of the things I do when I'm looking for new ideas for anything is just to brainstorm. I was in one of those sessions of just, you know, what would be a cool idea for a story? What would be a cool idea for a story? And, you know, go through and write like, you know, 10 or 20 of those and pick the best 3 and develop them and see if there's something there. So I would say it was in the midst of that, but it might have been like a 3 a.m. wake up. Oh, that was a scary dream I had. I don't know for this particular one, but ideas come from everywhere, so.
And
your original idea for the vault of souls or the infinite number of souls, that came to you as like a main idea, but the entire story has so much more to it. How long does it take for you to figure out, okay, how many characters do I want to use to tell the story? Do I want this to be a male? Do I want this to be a female? Are you inspired by anything along the way? And what are those steps? Like if the first step is coming up with the idea, next step is filling the cast of characters, next step is this. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Okay. Yeah, another good question. Yeah, I think, you know, you have for me, you know, what would be the term, like high concept, right, or whatever. You know, you can start with that, but, you know, as we all know, that's not enough to carry a story itself, right? I think when you start to break down what are the pieces of the story, what kind of character would make that concept tick? And then as you're you know, building, you know, antagonists, protagonists, so forth, for me, it's like more like a study of oppositions. It's like if I have a character that is going to serve, you know, this particular idea as well, who is the character, what sort of traits is the character who is going to oppose that person, or people, depending on, you know, your story? Who is going to be the best person that's going to know the Achilles heel, the missing scale, who's going to know all those things that can, you know, destroy whoever this person is. And then I have to throw those 2 people together, or persons, depending on, you know, the nature of your story. Throw them together, and a lot of that process is organic, you know, in scene by scene, you know, interactions. A lot of it is going to serve the plot, you know, how that will impact, I guess, the blooming of the overall concept. But hopefully answering your question, it's really a combination of organic versus structure. I believe a lot in structure, and, you know, the middle end of the story is essential. Figuring out how cast the characters, what everybody's going to do. I do a lot of plotting just in my own personal process. I know a lot of people enjoy, you know, kind of seat of the pants, you know, just let it fly. And I think that's great too. And I'll use that for like a mining process, you know, so to speak. But at the end, I'm going to take a lot of that kind of raw creative material and tension and just back and forth between my characters and ideas and put those in best to how they can serve the script. So I hope that gets to your question.
That's great. one question here, one more, and then we'll go to directing and producing. Do you mind holding that for the end? Can you do that? Okay, cool. Okay, so we'll start there and then there.
What advice would the new you give the old you? I'm sorry, the old you give the new you. The new you give the old you.
Very existential.
I would say network more and don't be afraid to get out there. For me, I was that guy, and I still am, to my shame. That guy that's, practicing, let's see if I can grow a beard down to my, down to my keyboard while I'm, working on my ideas. It's just, I think in this day and age, it's fun to have that kind of romantic idea of, you're a screenwriter that's going to, be discovered somewhere because you entered some, contest, anywhere, whether locally or nationally. But ironically, as in winning this contest, it has shown me just what a rich community is here, and if you can just go out and meet people and shake hands, and if you have a crazy idea that is going to fail, go out and fail, so you can have your the next idea after that. But yeah, just and then after that, write your ass off. That's and sorry, children, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's the other thing. It's easy to have these ideas and to do the what if and just kind of arm wrestle with your muse. But if you don't go and put that on paper, you're never gonna know. So that's what I would say. It's just write more and then interact more, which counterbalance each other brilliantly. But whatever.
There's balance to that though. All right.
Oh no, but to add to that, I heard a story about Stanley Kubrick, who was as meticulous as this guy was. He had a thing where he would print off several copies of his movies and the ones that he wrote and what have you, and he would literally hand it to the doorman of his building, to his taxi cab driver. He loved that feedback. He wasn't scared of it, and I think that's as I write too. But I think a lot of folks are afraid of knowing. And that's the beauty. That's really, like you were saying, that's really the beauty where it starts to get, all right. You put it out there, man. Okay, so one person comes back and says, oh, that sucked. And that devastates people. That'll make people just shut down, and myself included. I sort of, oh no. I thought that first one I wrote was going to be the movie, And that's just unrealistic, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I was just adding to what you're saying. That's totally.
That's a great addition, and DaVaun mentioned PSA earlier. That stands for the Phoenix Screenwriters Association. Roxy is one of the members of that group that actually, Roxanne actually coordinates a monthly table read, or actually stage reading, of a cold read of writer's scripts. So if you guys get a chance to follow Phoenix Screenwriters Association, that's on Facebook and on Meetup, and you can get an opportunity as writers to get your scripts read, as DaVaun got his script read last week, 15 pages of his sci-fi comedy, is that what you do? Supernatural comedy? Yeah, comedy. And so you really get a chance to get that feedback, to Jeffrey's point. It's written by local writers, read by local actors, really great opportunity there. Yes?
I had a question about, you mentioned that you spend a lot of time plotting. And then you may get an idea here or there, but when you have, or that you've written novellas or novels, but when you have a complete story, maybe you've already written it as a short story or made notes, but you know this world and you're about to then script it. Do you do ancillary tasks? Do you do things like timeline, or do you go write a storyboard, or how do you keep all of those things organized? Because when you write a novel, or when you're writing a short story or prose of any kind, you can really get some abstractions in there. You can condense time. You can put a flashback in half a sentence, or but in film, and when you're translating that visually, it's got to be, you've got to be able to shoot it. You've got to be, So how do you make that transition, and then how do you keep yourself organized when you're taking that story and then putting it into scene? How do you decide where to put that scene in that script? If that makes any sense.
So do you outline, I guess?
Are you already thinking about things like and I'm referencing other, maybe other work we've done, not just this, but if you've ever done anything like with flashback scenes, do you put that in the script first, or do you plot everything out? I know some people use cards and Post-its and various software, but what is your way of keeping things ordered?
Okay. Yeah, that's to get on the mechanical side. I think you're only as organized as your tools, I guess, could be an answer to that. You know, I know the old school, you know, and I haven't graduated. Well, I don't want to say graduated because I know that's effective for people, but you know, the note cards and having your scene in order and everything. That was something for me that, you know, it's a good organizational tool if you need to move scenes and whatnot. But in the end, it's just not time effective. In particular, handwriting, moving stuff around, getting your court work, blah blah blah, all that stuff. It's like the more stuff just in this day and age that you have the ability to render to a digital medium. Like I had to fight myself when I was first writing novels to stop writing stuff longhand. It's like, okay, you're going to work on the great American novel that no one's going to know until you're dead. Then yeah, keep writing in longhand or get used to, you know, processing your ideas in a different format. So to that end, I would say Scrivener is a tool that I use. It has multiple. It has a lot of functionality, whether you're doing screenplays where you can convert that over to final draft if necessary. It also, for manuscripts, everything, it does a lot. It does a lot. It will even transcribe into ebooks if that's something that you're, you know, down to do. That is a good tool. And then online, another, I don't know what to categorize this tool as, but it's called Evernote. And that's an excellent app just for categorizing things, for sharing with the team. You know, obviously this was I was a complete rookie on this, so it wasn't, you know, in the function, as we'll find out, you know, more of that process. But that is just something for organizing if you have multiple people adding to it. And it's a great thing to have for your phone. If you have that 3 a.m. like, oh wow, what a great idea. It's a good thing I can blah, blah, blah on my phone, and then just, you know, you have that note, you can capture those ideas. Whereas like, I used to be that guy with the Post-it note trying to drive, and oh, I have this great idea, but I'm too lazy to pull over, so let me like try and kill all of us on the freeway, you know. So don't be that guy. You don't know. And yeah, in terms of the larger stuff, and I don't want to take the entire comic range stuff because the film is more exciting. When you're doing your rough draft, and yes, I do plot pretty extensively, but once that rough draft is complete, in my experience, what I found, you take some time away from it and, you know, put it in a drawer somewhere, or keep your computer off, you know, go outside, go play with your kids, whatever you're going to do, and kind of reset yourself, and then go back and look at that through new eyes. And then everything that you were trying to do in your rough drafts, keep those points in mind if you're making those goals, but whatever that structure was, be brave enough to be able to throw that out and blow it up. So just like you said, you mentioned like a flashback. If that flashback isn't serving your next draft, and it isn't serving the story, don't be afraid to throw it out. Don't be afraid to change the gender of a character. Don't be afraid to make the antagonist a protagonist. Just, you know, but the rough draft has to be complete. That's what I've come back to. Otherwise, you're going to do that process for your first 10 pages until you're dead, and that doesn't help. So I'll stop.
No, it's great. It's great. Thank you. And so we're going to move into the producing side. We've got a couple of multi-hyphenates on our table here, Ruben and Kevin. So Kevin is a director-producer. Ruben is a producer-actor. Do you guys mind, and you guys can jump in whenever, but do you mind telling these guys what attracts you to a project that you are interested in producing or directing? And I already know what Ruben's going to say. Being an actor, I think I have an idea what he's going to say. But if you guys can talk about what attracts you to a project, and then also some insight into maybe how these guys could kind of dive in themselves. And Kevin, if you want to start, or Ruben, whoever wants to go.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
So what attracts me to a script as a producer is, of course, a good script. I mean, that's just bottom line. Second for me would be who's currently attached to it. Usually I'm part of the beginning process where I get a script and then I decide who's best for the project based on their experience level. Director of photography, have those discussions, so that's how I take on a project.
Yes, and so producing, directing, for Kevin, of course, you are the visual, you're telling it visually, so you have to kind of see the story yourself, imagine how you would direct it, and kind of talk about what has attracted you to projects in the past.
Yeah, Good question. Let's see. In the beginning, I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to direct. And obviously, the more visual the story is when it's written, and the faster that I can immediately get a sense of the characters. And I notice when I read a script, I like it. I know I really like it when I start already visualizing the pictures in my mind, like a comic book. I immediately see the pictures, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is good, you know. And then of course all the other stuff, the beginning, middle, and end, you know, all the beats, etc., and so forth. But mostly for me, I've realized lately that I'm extremely attracted to fantasy rooted in reality, things like Pan's Labyrinth, stuff like that, and then sci-fi. I realize I get bored real quickly, so you know, because I watch Transformers. But you know, I tried doing a drama, and I liked it. I was very interested in getting the people, the actors, where they needed to go, but I got bored real quickly, and so I was like, no, I need to see guns and, you know, big people and I don't know, whatever I'm talking about. But yeah, yeah. Long story short, it just has to be visceral. It really has to, yeah, it has to tackle me at a visceral level. You know, when I'm reading it, if it just starts doing things to me without me having to force it or try to find it on my own, then I know I'm on the right track. So it's more organic than anything else.
And for the writers in the room too, I mean, basically when they tell you the first 10 pages are crucial, they are. I have like 20 scripts that I've been sent, and literally I only have minutes a day or whatever it's going to be to review these scripts. And even with friends of mine ask me, how's my script? I'm like, I read the first 5 pages, it needs a little work, and I need to move on to the next project. I just don't have the time to mentor throughout the process. And I say that because I used to be a reviewer for Project Greenlight in the 2000s, and there's a lot of scripts there. So it's hard to get through all. As much as we want to help everybody, just hone those first 10 pages, because then if it gets me to say, okay, I read these first 10 pages, now I'm going to skim the rest and then see what I think about it, and then I'm going to read through it, and then read through it again, and start scoring it, and then decide how much is this going to cost me as a producer. Is this more independent film? Is this a blockbuster film? All that stuff as a producer comes into my head that I have to deal with and work with, as far as budgets go.
Yeah, I find if I can't get past, yeah, like you said, the first 10 pages, you know, as an audience, you pick up a book or something like that, you watch it, and if it's not interesting to you in the first 5-10 minutes, you're like, okay, well, thank you, and you just kind of forget about it and move on. But if it gets me, I'll read the whole thing, because I've read hundreds of screenplays, and if I start reading, I'm like, nah, I get like 5 minutes in, I'm like, I just kind of forget, like, you go get a Coke or something, and you just go, go do something else. But then a really good screenplay, I don't want to go get a Coke, I don't even think, I'm like, I'll call my friends, I gotta read this, so I'm not doing it.
And that's how the industry works too. So
yeah,
these guys have worked in the industry. Ruben and Kevin have for quite some time. They've had those bigger meetings that maybe not a lot of us from Arizona have. So what their practice is absolutely practice when you're looking at getting those studios or those agents to read your stuff. And they don't even care. They don't see a face. They just toss it.
Yeah. It's
tossed, and you may not hear from them again. So the goal, of course, if you're looking locally, is to get these guys interested and definitely kind of work your way, because they're here and they have friendly faces and they care about you because they're here. So definitely, I'd recommend that. Do you guys have any insight for writers who are trying to break in from here? Do you guys have any thoughts on how that might work?
I'm sure Kevin's going to approach it from a different perspective. It is crucial 100%. There's a lot of writers in the world. I mean, there's writers groups in every city, every town. Network. That's probably one of the best ways if you're going to get something across to someone like Kevin and myself or our peers in Los Angeles. Or, because Kevin and I do work the Los Angeles market as well as Trevor. And so, if I'm that busy, where am I going to find time to mentor somebody? If I haven't talked to you a couple of times, you seem like a nice person, I might take those extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes and say, you know what, here's my personal email address, send it to me. Because if not, if you send it to my email or to my business email account, I may never see it. That's how my progression has been, and like Sandra just mentioned, Cassandra, is that we started from the ground up. I mean, we know what it's like, and even then, we are now just getting into the $1 million budgets along with our films as well. And it's a struggle. So from another writer, it's like just networking kind of. I wouldn't pitch your idea, because honestly get pitched like all the time by so many writers. But I would just be yourself, be outgoing. And I might say, what do you do? And you're like, I'm a writer. Oh, what kind of stuff do you write? I'm a drama sci-fi guy myself. So if you say it's drama, I'm like, oh, well, do you have a quick, synopsis or something you can kind of pitch you can kind of tell me right now on the fly? If your pitch sounds good, I'll probably want to read at least your first 10 pages.
Yeah, the pitch is very important. The pitch is very important. I was last year at San Diego Comicon. We got to go talk to the Sharknado producers, and they were funny guys. But it was just funny because, as you know, you're always wondering, you hear about the elevator pitch, right? Give me something 2 or 3 lines, and tell me the whole story in 3 lines. And so, I'm like, this is never gonna happen. Right? So I'm standing with these guys, and then he goes, okay, so big shot. Tell me a synopsis for you, or give me one-liners on each of your films. And I had to do it like that. I was like, oh crap. But I rehearsed it so much in the mirror with everybody, the barista at Starbucks, didn't matter. I was like, here's my film, this is what it's about. And, and when you've done it right when the barista, when the elevator person, whoever, they're like, oh, whoa, that's awesome at the end of it, when you hit that punchline at the end, you say, this is what it's about, and you're on the right track. So I was like really nervous, but at the same time, I did it right out the gate, and he was like, oh, no doubt, well, here's my distributor, here's this, and give us a call. I was like, oh, okay. Elevator pitches do work. But be prepared, it can happen at any moment. So.
Do you guys have any questions for Ruben and Kevin? I'm going to ask one more if we don't.
I have a quick, are there like certain genres that you don't recommend? I mean, I know beginner, I've heard somewhere beginner screenwriters, you have to do like a spec script, in other words, kind of like nothing too elaborate because if it's too expensive to produce, they don't want to produce it. Because there's certain genres like, I don't know, sci-fi epic would probably not be a good subject for a spec script because the money involved to make it, or there's certain genres that you would recommend towards a spec script if,
I would say, as any writer in this room, learn to recognize budgeting as you're writing. There's a couple writers I was working with before, and they didn't have that much money for their screenplays. They said, you can so cheat the process in your scenes. If you want to have a car explosion, I'm sorry, you can't afford that. You don't have millions of dollars. So just be smart about how you do things in your scripts. There's a will, there's a way. So as far as spec scripts go, tone it down, but don't take away from the overall concept and theme that you're going for.
So you can do an elaborate sci-fi epic, just don't make it as visually epic because it costs a lot more money to do.
Correct. As long as in the mind's eye of the audience is there and the believability is there for your audience, you're going to get the point across and they're going to want to see the rest of that film.
Yeah, kind of like how THX 1138 was a student film that he bumped up to a feature-length big movie.
Mm-hmm. Look at Star Wars and then look at Looper. Looper's a sci-fi. If you like it, you're into that type of thing. But not as much for your budget, not near as much. So, still okay. I just actually had that shock 2 weeks ago. My producer out of New York said, Kevin, I want to revisit this car scene you have in your script. And I was like, okay. He's like, it sounds crazy because I want to take this car and fill it up with water coming out of the vents and through everything, and these bugs and all these snakes come out through him as he's driving. And so he's like, Kevin, it would actually be cheaper and easier to have the car roll and crash into trees than it would to fill it up with water. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, so can you rewrite the scene? And I'm like, okay, so now it's just a little water comes out, little bugs, and then he crashes. But it all comes out of the budget. It's like, we have the budget, and you look at it and go, okay, well, there's no way we can afford that. Do you want to use 50 grand on that car, or do you want to use 10 and we can use 40 grand later? It's just a money game.
But it is essential.
It is essential. You gotta be prepared, man. I'm sure any writer has to be prepared to accommodate to a certain degree. You choose the battles that you want to fight. I want to keep the scene no matter what. But if you're gonna do that, then I'm gonna give up for this. Okay. So you just have to be prepared for that.
And that's also the difference between a writer and a writer-director. So if the writer then gives the script over to the director will meet with the producer and will account for that for you. So you won't have to worry about that. If we like the script enough, we'll say, we need to change this based on budget. And that comes with experience, knowing cost structures in any city and permits and wherever it's going to be.
I also take a look at what's trending these days. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's still film business, so you still have to sell your product. You know, you're not going to get too far coming up with a really cool drama that, you know, I don't know, about two ladies that visited Australia. You know, I don't know, but you're
Unless
probably not
Helen
gonna-
Mirren's in it.
Yeah, unless it's Helen Mirren's in it. Unless you got an attachment to it. Yeah, every producer in the world will call on if you have an attachment, but if you don't, it's going to be really hard to sell. You know, so, but yeah.
I do have one point, and then Trevor can make this. I think in anything that we all do in any of the areas of filmmaking, the word you all should keep, hold on to is intention. Always know the intention behind your writing, know the intention behind your budget, know the intention behind your directing. What path you're trying to go towards. Is it budget restricted, is it not? So let's say, for instance, I have this blockbuster epic film that I want to do, but I only have, let's say, $20,000. So I want to get this into a huge feature film, but I also want them to see these great parts. I would do a sizzler of it instead of the full-length feature film for it, because that way I can promote that and get additional funds from other investors to make it into the full thing. But now they see these elements. I got an A-list actor to do it because I could afford to do it for that day. I got this big blow-up car scene, and it's only really filmed for like 3 days, but it blew up my budget, but that was my intention.
One question back.
Yeah, I'm actually getting my education. I want to become a producer, have my own production studio. What sort of advice would you give me as far as like what should I be learning in order to become like a successful producer?
I would say there's 3 things that you should put on your plate.
3 things.
Yeah, 3 things. That's it. If you're going to be super famous and make lots of money, no, you can get started on your path. We're always on a journey for all of us as producers in different films. Gain experience in all aspects of filmmaking. You have to understand your crew. You have to understand what's taking place. This also means knowing each of various areas of producing. So line producing, being a production manager, associate producing, reproducing to executive producer. At the small minutia level of it, when there's no budget, you do all those roles. But what happens when you get the budgets and you're trying to promote yourself as a legitimate producer, let's say for Universal, they're going to ask you, what is your plan? And if they say you're the producer, you kind of go into the weeds and to figure out what's the marketing strategy behind this after the fact in post-production. So the first thing I said is just experience. The next thing is ongoing mentorship. Find another producer that you can call and have them mentor you throughout the process. And then the last thing would be understand the business of filmmaking. So distribution channels, and again, we go back to intention. When you start from in development, where do you want that film to be ultimately at the very end? Because as a producer, you're driving that train from start to finish.
But I would say, you know, in addition to that, is just get behind the monitor with the director and watch what's going on. You know, with the new director, whatever, just watch. See all the different things happen.
So I'm in the right room to get my networking going.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
And also developing relationships. I mean, you're going to work with several different directors, but know the ones that they feel like home to you. Because those are the people you can be honest with and have those true discussions. Like Kevin and I have worked together on, I don't know how many projects now. Quite a few. But there's a reason for that. Because you're like-minded, there's a respect. You want that respect.
I started off as an editor, and I think that helped more than anything me understand every other role there is up the chain from there. Because as an editor, you see the writer, what they did well, what they did bad, you know, what they did poorly, and on down the line. And I also, on another point, I think when you're writing things, I think it's important to remember that the whole point of that scene is what is the audience going to get emotion-wise out of that? If you add, you know, $1 million explosion, does that help them get the same emotion across better or not? Look at Breaking Bad, for example. It was mostly character-driven, and it was an amazing TV show. But they didn't have huge explosions every episode. It was all psychological. Look at The Exorcist. It was all psychological, except for, you know, a couple simple things. So, yeah, if you make a sci-fi film, you're probably gonna have to spend a little more money on it. But keep in mind, what you're writing for, because Hollywood is a business. Are you writing for a $100 million script, or are you writing for something that can be made for less? And what names can be attached to it? You know, as a writer, you don't have to think about that yet, but that's what gets scripts sold, is when someone goes, oh, I have Bruce Willis interested in it, and he's attached. That's the holy grail right there, and then it goes to distribution, etc. So it is a business, and just remember that's why you're writing it, but it's all about the emotion that you're going to get to the audience.
That's great. So we have 5 minutes. I wanted to talk a little bit, let these guys talk about the visual aspect of it too, but before we do, how many actors do you have by chance? Couple actors? Cool. So Jeffrey, you want to talk about, and Ruben too, feel free to jump in. You guys want to talk about what draws you to work, especially when you know that you're likely going to be putting in quite a bit of time for free. If someone approaches you with a script, it's no low budget, what's going to attract you to play that role?
Me. No.
I know.
I'll be really honest with you. Working in AC is a different beast. It's a different animal altogether. I came out with the intention of, at some point I'm going to make that move to LA. I don't feel like I'm missing out on a whole lot. A lot of the productions are moving to places like Atlanta and stuff like that. That being said, I came right at the cusp of the incentives being taken away for film companies to come here and shoot from LA or whatever. My timing was awesome. So, yeah. But you were asking me about the no budget and what have you. It's a sacrifice. Of course it is. I mean, I have a family to raise, I always hope when Kevin comes to me, and he seems to have always been that way, and not everybody has this chance, and this is why I continue working with these guys, is that if they can, they will. And if they can't, they're going to hope that it's a strong enough script that it'll be like, Jeff, you're the man for this. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, it would have to be somebody you would like to work with. I have been on a lot of sets out here, and it's tough. It's really tough. If any of you were planning to create a film and you were using actors, just really think about those people. Think about those people that are putting their heart and souls and stick it in there with you, man. Just stick it in there with you. Jeff, look up. I know it's late. Is there a way you can just keep this going? Get this other scene in. Yes. You know why? Because you love doing it. Don't be a part of a production that you don't love doing. And you know right away. Your heart tells you, I read the script, like, it's okay. I really wouldn't do it, especially not for no money. So that being said, it's a hard road. I've been at this for a little while, and but I still love it, and I hope nothing what I'm saying is discouraging you from becoming an actor. There's no peaks in this whole industry anymore. Everyone's fair game. There used to be a time when it was like, it's young folks that are doing their thing, and they're still, man. I don't feel that applies. You can make it now. You can. It's just your perseverance, and I really love doing what I do. And when I read the script, it was awesome. I was like, yeah, let's make this happen. And you're a man of color. There's not many brothers out there doing it in sci-fi. So I respect that. And it's tough. But it's changing. It's changing slowly. It's happening. So, yeah.
No, it's good. And I mean, certainly, so to your point, a well-written script, a good character, and the director that you know is going to get you a copy of your work. And to your point, and I don't know if you guys have worked with actors before, but yeah, you do. I've been on sets where directors don't really care about the actors or they don't demonstrate that. And you know, we have to be advocates for actors, and I think you'll see, certainly Ruben being an actor and Kevin, who teaches actors on a regular basis and works with actors and really gets in there, you'll see that these kinds of guys are the models for the kinds of producers you want to work with, and also maybe even to, without being TV, but be in terms of working with actors. I think these guys really hit it. So,
Well, if you can
yeah.
pay.
Certainly, yes. If you
Well,
can.
if you can put the money into, say, for instance, a red camera, amazing visual effects, how do you not break off the person who's in front of that camera? How do you not go, hey, yeah, it just makes sense.
And just to clarify, I mentioned earlier that everyone donated time. That is the case for every position that we have. So Jeffrey, I call out Jeffrey because Jeffrey is an actor. He's the face of the character you're creating. So the concept is, of course, you pay them, but that's not always the case. It's not always affordable because often producers have to decide, do I feed the crew? Do I pay for the camera operator, the DP? But everyone donated. So that was everyone, again, everyone was free, not just Jeffrey, and that's common. Relatively common, not just the actors are the ones who work for free, and I know Ruben and Kevin tend to get the kind of gigs where they can pay when they can, but I did want to clarify that it's not just Jeffrey, but certainly you want to treat the actors well when you can. So visually, we have just a few minutes left, and certainly if you guys want to head over to another panel, that's totally understandable. Actually, we're a little over. But you guys want to talk about, for the small fries among us who have not maybe done something yet. We've got quite a few visual artists in the mix here. But do you guys, between Trevor and Kevin, certainly Ruben, you guys want to talk about like the basics that someone who maybe hasn't done anything yet that they can take away, and you can kind of keep it to like top 3 tips for them starting out, practical tips. And Ruben's grabbing the mic, so I think he's going to start up. Want to do this, Trevor?
Well, let's see. Well, when I was going through film school, you learn how to do things on the cheap, and that makes a big difference. Like a lot of times when you see people in a car, they're not moving, you know, and all you do is you take lights, you put them on a C-stand, it's a stand with an arm, and you just turn it, and then you spin it. So there's ways of faking it to achieve a specific look for a lot cheaper and a lot easier. So think of ways to do that visually. Also think of composition. And most importantly, and this also comes from my editing days, is you think, okay, if we're here on a wide shot, it gives this sort of motion. Do we want to dolly in and get up to a close-up because that'll create more intensity, so that changes the emotion of the scene? Do we want to pull out at a certain point? There was a certain point when one of the actors walked up to the screen. He's creating the composition just by his blocking. So all those little tricks, basically the whole point of filmmaking is to manipulate that motion of the viewer. Spielberg is a master at it. There's a scene in Jaws where the main Roy Scheider, he's sitting on the beach, and then it cuts to a swimmer, and then it cuts back. Now what you don't realize, unless you know about framing and editing and composition, etc., is it moved closer. And then when it cuts back to the other shot, it moves closer. It keeps moving closer and closer and closer. So Spielberg is manipulating you to feel more intense, to feel what Roy Scheider's character is feeling. And that's, when you actually learn about filmmaking, that's when you learn how to do. It's all about manipulating emotion.
Well said. Kevin, you want to jump in with maybe a...
That sounds scary. Like a psychologist. That's law. No. I learned filmmaking a little differently. Not the traditional sense, maybe going to school, etc. and so forth. I have a plethora of movies, I don't know that word, plethora of movies everywhere. And I'm just constantly watching the masters do it. And even the not so masters, so I can learn maybe what not to do. but I'm constantly watching the masters. How are they framing things? David Fincher would be, phenomenal director, obviously. Seven, you name it, Facebook movie and all that other stuff. But he thinks through every single frame and what his psychological abilities are going to do to the audience. Okay, he's a master at it. But yeah, that's how I learned filmmaking. I actually just went on a whole bunch of sets. Almost got myself into trouble, which was awesome. Almost got fired once because I said I was something I wasn't, but but I just got onto it. I don't recommend that. But I just went on as many sets as possible, and I learned a lot from movies I watched. And audio commentary. They don't do it as much anymore, but audio commentary, believe it or not, taught me so much. Scorsese talks about the history of film as audio commentary. There's one person who did Amelie and things like that. He talks about color theory and why you do the camera movements you do, and what lenses you use. Guillermo del Toro is perfect for why themes. He talks about themes and stories, which would be great for you writers. So every director, believe it or not, Tim Burton is not as interesting to listen to. He just all he talks about is the actors. I love this actor, I love this actor. But and you think, oh my God, he's going to teach about art, but he doesn't. But yeah, I just learned all my stuff from watching the greats and who I respect as filmmakers. And then I experimented like crazy. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Ruben, did you have anything to add too before we wrap it up?
No, I was just wondering if you wanted Kevin to elaborate on the visuals for this particular film.
Yeah,
what the process was to apply those to screen and stuff like that.
I just have the 5 minute warning, but yeah, I mean, if you guys want to hear that, especially since you saw it, Kevin, you want to kind of break down a couple of those elements that relate with effects, with our DP, with.
Can you tell me about that process?
Sheesh.
I know, right?
Well, what's interesting is you do a lot of sound effects. So in the, let's break it down from the very beginning. In the beginning, we see they handcuff Wynn to the table. It was actually just 2 plastic toys we found. We spray painted, but the sound effects from his boy and Jeremy here, they go, and it immediately sells the idea that he's magnetizing or locking into place. And therefore I didn't have to, Tony did a little quick effect, but other than that, it saves you from having to, really go and pay for all these things. It's sci-fi film. It can be very expensive. So you gonna play that? I'm excited.
No, I was just going to. You want to play?
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
I was just curious what I do.
Yeah, I was just trying to find the clip. We're gonna go quickly. Okay, there we go.
And that's it? No.
There's your screenshot.
I think you got it.
Yeah. And then I worked with Tony, and we went back and forth. What I love about Tony, I have to say, is the boy has no ego whatsoever, and I love that on set because making movies is a huge collaboration. You don't have time for egos, and he would always he would send me back another composition, and he'd say, "What do you think?" And you tell me whatever you want, Kevin. I was talking about it. And I'd send it back and go, we need to round out these edges, let's put a little more opacity in the screen so we can see through it, things like that. He'd be like, and send me another one. And it was awesome. Even when he did the gun, that little radar sensor in front of the gun, little things. And with the sound, Jeremy was a very integral part of this to sell a lot of the sci-fi elements. With the monitors coming up, the gun powering down and powering up, even that whole entire through the whole thing, it was really nice.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so, Tony would probably be better to talk about how he did it, but yeah, basically things like that. I supplied him with the pictures and the video, and we actually shot this not moving, just for a quick thing. Once you move that camera, it gets a bit more difficult when you're doing visual effects, for those who don't know. So be cognizant of that if you don't have the money or time to do that. If you do, great, go for it. But if you don't, keep the thing stationary. If you notice his hands are not in front of the monitor, they're on the, they are, but they're away from the actual screen, because it becomes a big pain to start rotoscoping and taking out hands and stuff like that to put that in there. So just be cognizant of it. You can still tell the story, it'll still be interesting. And we shot it in 4K. So technically, you could do a zoom in 4K. 4K means how much resolution you're doing. So we could go in, because we were outputting it to HD, I have so much room to play. Like those last 4 shots when he propositions him and says, you can either go with me, etc. and so forth, and then he makes that decision when he has the gun out. I'm going to keep throwing details in. There we go. So when he sits down, the camera starts going left to right. Well, it was interesting, we didn't do that on set. Because we didn't have time, we ran a little low on time. So we did that in post. We just, since it was 4K, when you were on HD, I went to the HD version and started doing rotations because I feel the belt suspense by going left and right. A lot of people do the zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. I wanted to go left and right, a little bit more like an anime style. Yeah.
So it's like an imitated dolly shot.
Yeah, imitated dolly shot. Yeah, I mean, the zoom part will be very zoomy, but it's a good left to right track shot. You can do it easily.
Yeah, one other thing is we actually utilize the fluorescent lights, and your human eye can't perceive it, but the camera sees it as a green tinge to it. So on each one of those fluorescent lights, we put up a color correction gel called minus green. So it takes out that green, and it gets you to a more neutral lighting. So lighting is huge when it comes to films. And that's why, yeah, like films like this are lighted a lot different than like a sitcom, exactly. So it just, you have to think about those things as well.
Yeah, and that's good for writers as well, since that it's all about bringing the audience to us psychologically.
That's all the time we've got. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. While we still have time, certainly if you guys want to come up and talk, we're going to kind of migrate out to the next session and get started. But if you guys have time to chat, I welcome you guys to do so. I encourage it, especially asking questions. And thank you guys so much. You guys are amazing.
Thank you.